Hello everyone and welcome to our Gem Pursuit. I'm your host Matthew Weldon and I'm joined here in Dublin in our studio by my trusty co-host Alyce Ketcher. Hello Alyce.
Hello Matthew and welcome to our listeners.
It's pretty hard to believe this is actually our fifth and our final episode of our Icons of Jewellery series. Pretty safe to say from the outset I knew this lady was a particular favourite of yours, so do you want to give us the lowdown? Who are we talking about today?
The supreme goddess of Mexican cinema and my absolute jewellery and fashion icon of all time, La Doña Maria Felix.
Perfect. Let's get started.
So to really understand the kind of psyche, I'd say, surrounding Maria, because she has a hugely eventful life. First off, she is known, and the reason why she is so famous is because of her film and acting career. She is featured in over 47 films, all of them non-English speaking films. So this is the reason why, a lot of us in the Western world may not have heard of her. We may have seen pictures of her because of her outstanding and exquisite natural beauty. But in terms of what her career actually entailed, not a lot of people would have come across her like other film stars that we've talked about, like Elizabeth Taylor or people from the royal family.
Diana is that, yeah.
Like Diana. So this is a really exciting one. For those who may not have heard of her before, when you delve into the world of Maria Felix, it is absolutely alluring, captivating. Her life story itself is so interesting. And then you see her in film and you see actually how stunningly beautiful she was and can see why people wanted to see her on the big screen.
She started pretty humble background and she was one of 15 children, and that is a big family by any standards. She had different relationships with her siblings, and I always find sibling relationships very interesting because I'm one of 6 myself, and you see the different dynamics and who's close to who. But she was particularly close to one of her brothers, which is important for something that happened to her shortly after. But her father was indigenous descent of Mexico. Her mother was from California, but Spanish lineage from California. So she is of Mexican
ancestry, and it was really important to her. She never really distanced herself too much from Mexico. She was always back and forth. Even when later in her life she moved away from Mexico, she always ended back in Mexico. So it's really important for her story because we go from, yes, humble beginnings. She has a very large family. She then starts to grow up and she starts to get attention. By the time she's 17, her beauty has, of course, attracted attention, and she's crowned a beauty queen at the local university. And this is where her first husband comes into play. So she gets married to a Max Factor salesman. Part of the beauty industry. So he obviously has seen a lot of faces, and hers, I can imagine at that time, was amazing, a piece of art. And then they get married. She soon after that has a child with him, and he is her only child, Enrique. But ultimately, this particular marriage doesn't last, and they divorce in 1937.
He was extremely jealous and concerned. She was so beautiful that he was so careful where he brought her. So she wasn't able to leave the house during the day. They had a predetermined list of activities that was allowed. I'm doing inverted commas.
So basically, this is an abusive relationship.
Oh, very. Oh, she's only 17. when they met, like,
Yes,
so.
but it's not only that, it's the fact that we've got possessive control involved here. So, which the way that I like to explain Maria is she is literally like a wildcat. You do not put a wildcat in a box and tell them these are the list of activities you're allowed to do. It ain't gonna work.
Like, for example, one of the things that they did was they went to the cinema. That was okay because it was dark. You couldn't see her anyway. They always, at his behest, they always arrived late and left early. She left and went back to live with her family. And one of the phrases that I heard her described as, she was the number one enemy of Mexican family values.
But this is mirroring also. We have to talk about Elizabeth Taylor, because this is also mirroring a lot of the kind of shame and blame that is placed onto these women when things didn't work out. It was somehow became their fault and it lay at their feet. And she was shunned because she was a divorcee. And there was so much talk in her little small town that she was like, forget this, literally forget this. She took her son, she took herself out of this toxic situation, and she moved herself to Mexico City, where she started working as a receptionist at a plastic surgeon's office. This to me, number one, shows that she had the foresight to say, I'm not going to live in a situation where people are going to put me down and are going to judge me for something that I removed myself from. So I'm going to, again, remove myself from that situation and put myself into a better situation. And I applaud her for having the bravery of doing that, because she could have stayed with her family and just rotted away in that small little town. But she did not. She refused to do that. And this is where her life begins, in Mexico City.
She was also very intuitive. And I don't know, Elizabeth Taylor was as well. And it also seems to be a factor of these people who really love jewellery. They have a great intuition. And when she was locked up in her first marriage, restricted, let's say that, she listened to a lot of radio. That's how she passed the hours. And as you said, it just didn't suit her at all, but that's how she coped with it. And one of the shows she liked to listen to was one called The Intimate Hour, which is hosted by Agustin Lara. And she used to tell her friends that one day she's going to marry Agustin Lara. And obviously at this moment, they had absolutely zero connection. She was married. He was pretty successful radio host, showbiz kind of guy in Mexico. But she foresaw that she was going to marry him. And eventually she did get out of that marriage. Chance meeting with Agustin Lara, eventually ended up getting married. He initially helped her meet all the people in the industry in Mexico. People thought she was also capable of going to the States, the US, the American States, to take on Hollywood, US cinema. But as you said, she really, being Mexican was a big part of her identity, and she stayed and decided to ply her trade in the Latin cinema.
This is really important to me. This is really one of the reasons why I find her so iconic, because the allure, or even the pull, I would say, of Hollywood is so intense, because it has so much worldwide success. It means so much, being part of Hollywood movies, or winning an Oscar, or having your name on on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. All of these kind of accolades that come with being part of the Hollywood set can really make people kind of lose their identity, and also loosen their moral grounding and stance. And because there's you're trading in one thing for another, right? You trade in this thing that means so much to you for something that actually is considered more worthy in the the eyes of the world, right? Which a lot of us have done, a lot of our ancestors have done. And what that has meant is that we've lost so much of our flavor, our individual flavor. Things to do with our cultures have kind of slowly been lost or died. And what I really appreciate about Maria is that for her, Mexico was her Roman Empire. It was the beginning, the end. It was everything to her. She started her life there. She ended her life there. She lived the Mexican life, and she created a Mexican dream for the women in Mexico, for women who looked like her, who grew up like her. And she didn't sell it in or buy into anything else. She showed them how to do it in her country. And I appreciate that so much about her. And I think that's why she was so beloved in Mexico, even when she moved away from family values, or she portrayed a prostitute, or she portrayed, not a prostitute, a brothel owner. She never delved right in, but she was the brothel owner, or she was the Roman empress man eater, or she was the feisty, hard woman. And it gave other women that look like her permission to do that. And that's what I really love about her is, I look over some of her quotes and it makes me so happy. Like, when I like myself, I am my owner. So she's also teaching women that as well. Like yourself, and nobody else owns you. Only you own yourself. You have to like yourself. You have to love yourself. Beauty is power. She understood how beautiful she was. She understood her body. She understood how men reacted to her, and she used that for her benefit. And I applaud her for it. She also says a lot of other things like, I am not afraid of anything because I have lived a life intensely and without fear. She's so unapologetically her. And this is really, really important when we look at her story, because she marries 4 times. The first time didn't work out. She had a very controlling husband. She got rid of him. She took the child, moved to Mexico. He came and removed the child from the situation. And then she gets married a second time. This second marriage doesn't work out, but that particular husband goes and kidnaps their son back from her first husband. So in my eyes, that's a success. And then we move on to husband number 3, who in between all of this, she is found as a movie star, but not like most movie stars who go for auditions. How was she found as a movie star, Matthew?
Well, she was discovered, as a lot of these discoveries happen, almost by chance. She was seen walking down the street by a director, and obviously we've talked about her beauty and her iconic look, and he instantly said to her that he could make her a movie star. I think it's also important to note that Maria Felix also liked to spend a lot of time in Paris. She loved Mexico, and then her other city that she loved to go to was Paris.
And she did live there with her 4th husband. So she had 4 husbands, 2 who were divorced and 2 who passed away. So who she outlived. So her first 2 were the first 2 that she divorced. And the second 2, the first one was the very famous Mexican star who she starred alongside in her first movie, Jorge Negrete.
Jorge Negrete.
There you go. Matthew's always better at pronunciation than me. And he was a Mexican movie star of the time, and she was a new timer. And apparently on set on their first movie, on her first movie, they didn't get along. But in his later years, when they get married, they get along, obviously. And then he passes away because he was quite ill when they did get married anyway. So they're only married for just over a year.
Before she married him, actually, she was also in a 5-year relationship with Suzanne Boyle, who I think ran a cabaret in Paris.
That's one of my favorite stories.
Yeah, and we went to a cabaret, you and I, recently. I had no idea what a cabaret was, but now I definitely know what a cabaret was. Let me tell you, my eyes have been opened.
But that particular relationship,
did it end badly or something?
it was so. This is so dramatic, and so Maria, she's in a relationship with Suzanne, who's known as Fred. Also in circles in the cabaret in Paris. They have a painting that's done of them together, and it's called The Two Flowers. And you can look it up, but during their illicit affair / relationship, Maria...
5 year, like it was a relationship.
Exactly. Maria gifts a lot of jewellery to Fred as well, to Suzanne. And at the end of the relationship, when it ends quite severely, Maria takes her to court to try and get the jewels back and says that they're stolen. And the French courts look at this and they're like, no, Maria loses and the jewels stay with Suzanne. But Maria does get the painting. And in a fit of temper, she takes the painting back to the artist and has the artist remove the face of Suzanne and repaint the face as her face. So
I love this story.
The painting of Two Flowers actually is now just two of Maria Felix's faces.
Two Marias, yeah. That's
it's one way to...
It's so loaded with emotion, that, isn't it?
It is.
It's really...
It really is.
Would you call her a diva?
I wouldn't, like, this is the thing, is like, would we call a man a diva if he did that?
I knew you were going to say that. Yes, I would call a man a diva if you did that. It's a certain type of behavior.
I would say
like,
it's petty. I would say it's petty. I would really say it's like petty. But I would say that she's ferocious. I would say, like, the way that she attacks things in her life is never like, she's not half anything. She's either really in or really out. And like, that shows also with, so many artists wanted to paint her because she was just, I cannot explain how beautiful she was. She was stunning. Goddess.
She really was, yeah. She really was.
Like a face of a goddess. And another, Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo, very famous Mexican artists. Diego Rivera painted her a number of times and sketched her as well. One of my favorite sketches of her is one that she kept in her bedroom, which was a sketch that Diego Rivera did of her holding a child. And it's just, I love it so much. I wish I could have it in my bedroom. But he famously painted her as well and fell deeply in love with her and proposed marriage to her when he was still married to Frida Kahlo. She kind of just looked at him and went, nah, not interested. It's kind of the person that she was. She either was in or she was out. And no one could talk her into anything that she didn't want to do. And that's ultimate power.
She was all or nothing, that's for sure. And I think when someone's like that, it leads to all these sort of unusual stories because most people hedge their bets in some way, shape or form. We're all guilty of it.
They conform. They conform to the norms of the time. They're either swayed by religion, family circumstance, or culture, and they don't satisfy themselves. They satisfy the status quo. And she didn't. She was not interested. She was there to please herself. Who doesn't admire that? I totally admire that. I'm like, yes.
One before we leave, because I have to say this story because I thought it was an absolute bizarre one. When she was shooting a film, met with one of the local tribes people there, right? I don't know if you heard this one, did you? It was on set or whatever. And she went to their camp and she was offered food and so on. And she didn't realize that that particular tribe have cannibalistic tendencies. But she said, and then they said, but would you have eaten if you knew that? And she said, no, absolutely not. But she said, the truth is, it did taste very good.
Well, there you go. She actually was a man-eater. Okay. Now we need to get into the jewels, Matthew. This is the important part. The jewels, the jewels, the jewels.
You know, sometimes, we're in the shop, right? We get offered a collection of jewelry all the time, and when you get a collection of jewelry, there's always a common theme, right? And sometimes you go through it and you see something different in it, and you kind of say, oh, that's unusual. What's that? And they go, oh, sorry, that's my one I want to sell as well. It wasn't part of my great-granny's collection or whatever, right? But you can always tell that a collection of jewelry is from the same person. And most collections we get, they have a really nice flair here and there, but, they're kind of, broadly similar because they're usually from Ireland from the 60s, 70s, 80s, right? That's the type of stuff we buy. I've never seen a collection of jewelry that so perfectly embodies the person who collected it. And it's such a diverse range of show-stopping, iconic pieces, which, of course, we've come across some of these pieces before. So we're going to touch on some of them in a bit of detail, but, we'll refer you back to where you can get the full breakdown of them. And the stories behind how she got these jewels was quite incredible. But, I mean, where do you start with her collection?
Well, I want to start firstly with Jorge's gifts to her. So this is the Mexican superstar. They didn't have a great first meeting, but over time they fall in love because she's so beautiful. Who wouldn't fall in love with her? And before his death, he decides that he will have a beautiful suite of emerald and diamonds created for her from Cartier, which included a necklace, a bracelet, a pair of earrings, and a very big ring. Now, again, we have to remember this was like in the 1940s. This is considered at the time, big rings are considered quite crass. They're like tacky. She doesn't care. Whatever to that. I want a big emerald. Who doesn't? Me too, Maria. And she gets a massive suite of jewels from him. Unfortunately, he passes away and he hasn't paid the bill to Cartier. Now, the debt, according to law, passes on to whomever the estate is left to. The estate is left to Jorge's daughter. And so this particular bill is then transferred to Diana, his daughter, and she has to foot the bill for the necklace because Maria refuses to give it back. Now, I get this. Obviously, this affair is all publicized and people like putting their 2-cent pieces in. But I can understand from Maria's point of view, this is probably one of the last gifts that she's been gifted from her husband. I wouldn't want to part with it either. Also, the fact that it's Cartier and emeralds and diamonds, I wouldn't want to part with it either. But what happens is Felix, she does refuse to return it, but she does set up a trust for Jorge's daughter and paid the sum of 1,150,000 pesos into that trust so that she can keep the jewel. And that's not widely known. So this is the first kind of dip that we see into real amazing jewelry. Because this suite of emeralds and diamonds is the first kind of whoa pieces that she has. And then once we hit into the 1950s, when she's married to her fourth husband, who is a Romanian-born Parisian banker called Alex Berger. He was very rich. He was very powerful. They lived an amazing life of luxury in Paris. And this is when we see her become one of Cartier's most important clients of all time.
What I can't get my head around it, and we've come across this before, in a way with Diana. She ordered her engagement ring, and it was allegedly never paid for. how the jewels end up with these people without the bill being paid. No, like, I mean,
It's the number one rule, though, isn't it? The thing, you don't relinquish the item until the money is paid. It's the reason why houses and things like that, there's so many contracts around when you can move in, because the asset has to move into the hands of the new owner.
Just possession.
Yeah.
Just possession. But she obviously bought things. She also had some really incredible pieces commissioned. And, you know, two of the most famous pieces, which I'll touch on briefly, one of them was the Cartier snake. She wanted a snake made life-size. Obviously, lots of different snakes.
And lifelike.
And lifelike, right? But this one is basically the size of, you know, an average human's arm. It had 2,473 diamonds weighing a total weight of 178 carats. The key piece I'd want you to know about this is that she wanted this snake to look like it was ready to pounce. And when it was being commissioned, one complaint she had that it was too, what's the word?
It wasn't ferocious enough.
It wasn't ferocious enough, yeah. It didn't look like it was ready to strike. So anyway, they amended it. From a jeweler's point of view, I look at this snake, and the engineering of it for me is as impressive as the beauty of it, actually. We have articulated jewellery, like small articulations in it. We're like, whoa, look how this was incredible. Probably, in my opinion, one of the most iconic pieces. And I'd love to see this come up for auction, actually.
But also
or for sale privately, of course.
Not a typical Cartier piece. So this is where she becomes really interesting to me in terms of what she can get people to do for her. Because the construction of this takes over 2 years. That is a long time to wait for a piece of jewellery. It's also a lot of work for such an esteemed and prestigious jewellery firm to lock themselves into. So, you know, the creation of such a personalised item, you've got to have huge sway. You can't walk into Cartier today and go, I want you to work on a 2-year project for me. I want it to look like this. I want it to be articulated like this. You wouldn't be able to do that today without a lot of pull in, you know, even Zendaya, I don't think would be able to create that kind of pull from Cartier today to have something like that made for her.
But also very real financial considerations there, even for someone like Zendaya. That would be, to do that today, Cartier, I don't even know where you'd begin writing the check.
Exactly. So this kind of sway is huge. Not only that, as soon as she finds out that it's actually finished, she charters a flight back from Mexico to Paris to pick it up. She's so excited. So they also personalize it for her in so many ways. We don't want to go into too much detail because you can go and listen to it in our Serpent episode. But it's so personalized that even the colors on the belly of the snake are in the colors of the Mexican flag.
Red and green, I believe.
Exactly. So that's an homage. That's in honor to her heritage, which again is super personalized. And the second item, which of course we've already covered before in our 1970s episode, was
the Cartier crocodiles. There's 2 of them. They can be brooches or they can be linked together and worn as a necklace. They're about just under a foot long, which I believe is about 30 centimeters. One is yellow gold with emerald. The other is platinum and diamond.
Yellow gold and yellow diamonds.
Yellow diamond. Oh, yeah.
Fancy yellow diamonds.
Yeah. So, 60 carats of goods. That's a real trade term, isn't it? 60 carat of goods. Yeah.
But not only that, the famous story is that she walks into Cartier with a live baby crocodile in a tank to get them to make them as lifelike as possible. And this particular story is very well known throughout jewellery archive books, but also it's written, Francesca Berknell also touches on it in her memoir of the Cartiers.
We're not encouraging,
bringing in live
animals to jewelry shops. Just unless they're dogs. We have dogs in our shop. All right, that's fine. But again, it shows her personality. So,
But then shortly after the snake as well, she gets snake earrings commissioned from Cartier as well that go on her ears. Some of my most favorite shots of her are where she's wearing these particular snake earrings. They're like coiled hoop snakes with turquoise enamel on the head and tail. And, you know, the way that she styles not just her jewels, but how she styles those particular items with her fashion choices. She wears absolutely exquisite fedora hats. She wears scarves. She has a lot of her majestic body covered in gorgeous clothing, but she's so beautiful she could wear nothing and she would still be the most beautiful person in the room. But the way that she styles her jewelry with her fashion also brings the jewels to life. So you will see a lot of photographs going through onto our Instagram as well of her wearing certain jewelry pieces. But the reptilian jewels that she has commissioned are probably some of the best.
Yeah, they are some of the best and the most iconic. But I mean, I just want to touch on this diamond as well, because I think, as you mentioned at the start, as would be typical for Maria Felix, it wasn't in keeping with the style at the time, but it's what she liked. And it was a pretty incredible diamond, her Ashoka diamond. There's a lot to be, her alligator pieces are serpents, but there is something to be said just about a very massive diamond, especially one that's an Ashoka, because it is an unusual cut. And for anyone who knows a bit about diamonds, wants to know a little bit more, Ashoka cut is a bit like an emerald cut. So it's rectangular in its form with rounded corners. But unlike an emerald cut, which is a step cut, which has square and rectangular shape facets, and the facets are the little surfaces on the diamonds, which can be usually triangular or kite-shaped in a brilliant cut. Emerald cuts have step cut facets. But the Ashoka is a blend. It's got the shape and outline of an emerald cut with rounded edges. But instead of being step cut, it has brilliant cut facets. So it has the kite-shaped facets and it has the little triangular-shaped facets. But it's also that elongated shape. So you get the sparkle and the brilliance of a round with the elegance and the form of an emerald cut. So it really is a blend of it. And her one was a pretty big one. I believe its carat weight was
41.37 carats. And
D flawless.
D flawless. I love seeing her in her older years. She kind of like flits her, she talks a lot with her hands. If you ever see her in a lot of her red carpet kind of interviews, she'll use her hands a lot. And every time she puts her hands up, you're like, oh my gosh, like blinded by her diamond. It's huge. Also, the diamond, is named after the Emperor Ashoka because he was known specifically for the brutal slaughter of thousands. It was a conquest. But after the battle, he converted to Buddhism. And that meant that he no longer wanted any kind of conflict in his life. And so he then became extremely beloved because of his kindness and because of his promotion of peace. And so this diamond also has that kind of connotations connected to it as well.
She actually bought it from Harry Winston as well.
And then the diamond goes bye-bye to a financier known as Roberto Polo in the 1980s. And apparently she's the one who sold it to him. And we don't know for what amount.
I'd say she got the value for it.
I'd say so. But one of my favorite quotes of hers is also, I only cried 3 times in my life, both times when my husband's died and when I had to sell my jewels.
It just struck me there, Alyce. She's very like Elizabeth Taylor, just Mexican, isn't she? Like even her diamond is a similar, like the Elizabeth Taylor's emerald cut is, kind of similar size, similar kind of grading. Okay, Elizabeth Taylor upped the numbers for husbands, but, Maria Felix had quite a few. Both massive film stars, both very individual, powerful, strong-minded women, like, did what they want. Like, there's a lot of similarities, and just those two diamonds are so similar. Like, it's pretty incredible.
It's very similar, but there's definitely differences, but they lived in a similar time period to each other, and they had similar outsets on life. So the way that they lived through life was, I'm going to please myself.
Her diamond in 1988, it came up for sale in Sotheby's in Switzerland. A lot of people attended this, wanted to get a hold of this diamond, let me tell you. But it ultimately sold to an anonymous bidder for $3.85 million, which was a record price for any diamond at that time. And $3.85 million in 1988. That's, even in today's money, that's a lot. But I think with the provenance, etc., today, I'd love to see something like that come up again. But it truly is, one of the iconic stones.
But it's also gone into the ether. We know not where it is. So
private buyer,
yeah. So it's out there. Somebody is enjoying the Ashoka diamond. If it's you, please contact me. I would love to have a look. Adding to her menagerie of animals, she also owned a panther bracelet from Cartier. She also owned a crocodile bracelet from Cartier. So she loved animals, and in terms of her jewelry collection, it goes on and on and on. It wasn't just Cartier. There are additional snakes and bangles, and there are a lot of Etruscan revival pieces that she layers. She was the queen of the stacked wrist before anybody else. Famous photos of her everywhere wearing her crocodile necklace with an armful of bangles, including snakes. Just overall, a really, really cool girl.
Before we get back to the episode, I would just like to say that with Christmas fast approaching, we would love to hear from you. So we are going to do a special Christmas Q&A session where you, the listeners, get to lead it. So if you have any topics or questions you would like to ask us, make sure you DM us on Instagram at Courtville Antiques, or you can email us at experts@courtville.ie, and we'll do our best to answer those questions in our Christmas special. Let's get back to the episode. To get the look for Maria Felix, look, there's a few elements to it, right? First of all, her jewelry's big, right? It's gold, it's bold. She loves serpent motifs, right? We've talked about serpent motifs before. You can go to the Victorian era. You can look for serpent motifs for the 1860s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. These are going to be top quality antique pieces, typically. The serpent necklaces that are beautifully woven gold, set with gemstones. I can think of one we have in stock at the moment, set with 3 garnets, almandine garnets in the head, the largest one in the top of the head, and then they can go to graduate in size going down. It's got yellow gold with a little bit of white gold detailing on it. That's Maria Felix-esque. You can, get rings as well from that time period. So that's the first way you could do it. You can also go to a different time period and get other jewelry of this genre. And that would be really 1960s and 70s. You get this kind of revival of this type of jewelry. It's not Victorian. It will be chunky. It'll be set in 18 karat gold. Typically, a lot of it is made in Italy. Obviously, some in other countries as well, but it's a typical bold, chunky Italian style. This antique jewelry, extremely rare. It's not that there's a premium for it, but it's that you're paying a premium for it being rare, which also means it holds its value very well. And especially as less and less it become available. You can look at that 1970s serpent jewelry. You can also get other animals in this 1970s jewelry. And that'd be 2 ways you can initially get the look. But at least I know you like this look. I'm thinking of what pieces you'd actually buy yourself. But
yeah, I look at Maria, and obviously I want everything to do with her. So I'm like, yeah, I want the hat, want the cigarette holder, don't smoke, but still want it.
But I'll start.
Want the gorgeous headscarves, want everything to do with the way that she dressed herself. So exactly what you said, Matthew. Antique eras that I'd look out for are the Victoriana eras, in particular snake motifs, but also Etruscan revival and anything to do with religious symbols. Remembering that Mexicana cinema had a lot of religious motifs in it. The cross motif and also the Madonna medallions are things that she also wore. So anything in gold with these kind of icon medallions or miraculous medals really lean into her style. Anything with granulation in the borders of it, think elaborate gold work. And this is also pieces that she would have put together with 1970s pieces. Remember, you don't have to just live in one decade. We have the pleasure of dipping into any decade we want and any century we want. And we can pair it all together for it to still look magnificent. And that's what she did. In terms of 1970s, what to be careful of. A lot of the time, we start to lose a bit of detail, right? We don't want a snake that looks like a worm. We don't want a crocodile that looks like a cartoon character. These are big tips. Anything that is missing those kind of details, teeth, a pointed head on a snake, or claws on a crocodile. If you've got feet on a crocodile that look a little bit like an elephant's foot, those are things that you want to steer away from. You want those little details, and it's worth spending the money to get those extra details.
Yeah, and they are a different thing. There is whimsical jewellery that has animals that look whimsical, but that's not the Maria Felix look.
Yeah, I mean, if an alligator has claws, an alligator should be depicted with claws. It shouldn't be depicted with nice little rounded feet.
And that's a good tip, Alyce, for any jewellery. If you're buying a Victorian 5-stone diamond ring, you want the engraved detail to be crisp. I mean, that is the quality of it is how, and sometimes you'll hear in the trade, you'll hear people say like, oh, it's a lovely fresh ring. Might be 150 years old. What they mean is that the condition is fresh. And certainly if you're getting lifelike animal jewellery, I think that's an excellent point, Alyce. I think the devil is in the details. And if they're worn out, they won't have that real animal vibe going on. One other very important way you could get the look is that there was a collection inspired by the crocodile and emerald necklace. And Cartier actually made a collection, where this was the kernel of inspiration. And obviously...
Yeah, it's called the La Doña collection. So it is based off of her, and that really, I mean, homage to her, obviously part of her legacy as well. But Cartier making a collection surrounding you, specifically naming you, unheard of.
I look forward to your one, Alyce. Also, La Doña watch, I think, very important piece of the puzzle there. So, of course, we don't do watches, but it is a beautiful piece.
Lastly, to do with her legacy, well, number one, live your life unapologetically. Be you, because everybody else is taken. And really lean into what you enjoy, because that's what she did. She really lent in hard to the things that brought her joy. And what we have left of her is so many different artworks. If you look up Maria Felix, please do. There's so many artists who have portrayed her in a number of different ways. Some of them are quite hilarious. There's a painting of her on a rhinoceros. But this is fun. She did pass away in Mexico at the age of 88, but she lives on forever through art. And I think that's the way that she would want to be remembered. So, I've just received a refresher from the producer, Ross, which states that our current scores for our gem trivial pursuit is 7-6, which means that I'm 7 and you're 6, Matthew. So unfortunately for you, we go into this last round of gem trivial pursuit with me in the lead.
Well, you know, I'm a keen hurler, which is an Irish sport, nothing to do with being unwell. And as they say in hurling, the score only matters once, and that's at the end, Alyce.
Nobody cares about hurling.
I think quite a few people care about hurling. Google it; it's really good.
Yawn. Anyway, at the end of the day, I'm still in the lead, and so we have to keep things fair because there's been a bit of bias, and the listeners have reached out and said that they believe me in that bias.
So, sorry, none of that's true.
It is true.
That's absolutely not true.
It is true.
One person who was chatting to you who agreed with your suggestion said that, and now it's become a thing. But anyway, we won't get into that.
Incorrect. 2 people in New York stated that they believed. So now it has been changed.
That's a fact then.
Now it has been changed to set questions. So you can have either set A or set B, which have been pre-made, and we get to choose which ones we want. And I would like set B. Thank you, Ross.
All right. Well, I'll ask you first, Alyce, because there might not be a competition after it. So let's see.
No.
Question 1 of Gem Trivial Pursuit, Maria Felix edition. Crocodile Rock was a hit song for which British recording artist in 1973?
Elton John.
That is the correct answer. That puts 2 between us. So if you get this one, it means it's at worst a tie for you. In Disney's Peter Pan, and this is question 2, released in 1953, who has a crocodile called Tick Tock who is trying to eat him?
Captain Cook.
I'm afraid that is incorrect. That is actually Captain Hook.
Oh, see, Captain Cook is the guy who found Australia.
Well, I think some people there found it before him, actually.
Well, the English, they stick a pole in something and they're like, yeah, it's mine.
Okay, I'll need 3 out of 3 if you get this one right. Question 3. Set B. Alyce Ketcher.
Oh, my God.
In 1999, horror comedy Lake Placid, in which a giant crocodile terrorizes a small town. Which legendary Irish actor plays the sheriff? Hank Keogh, I think. Hank Keogh.
Oh, my
Anyway,
gosh.
was it Cillian Murphy, Daniel Day-Lewis, or Brendan Gleeson?
Brendan Gleeson.
Did you just get that?
No, because the other 2 would definitely not do that.
Yeah, it's Brendan Gleeson. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh.
All right, I need a clean sweep to draw it. Ross?
Daniel Day-Lewis in Lake Placid. Are you serious?
Yeah, he's so careful. My favorite film of all time is actually Last of the Mohicans.
Yeah, but he would never do that film. He would never.
Ross, I feel like I actually would have got all those wrong, to be honest with you. So, anyway, except for the last one. And maybe the second
All
one.
right, let's see.
I need a clean sweep.
He has to get all 3 of these correct to win.
Massage my brain.
So set B obviously sounded like it was about crocodiles because all 3 of the questions were about crocodiles. Yours, Matthew, are all about snakes.
Super.
So are you ready for this?
Sure.
Question 1 of your Gem Trivial Pursuit questions regarding snakes is: which animated film originally released in 1967 features a snake character named Ka who hypnotizes the protagonist with his eyes? Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And you have 10 seconds.
Was this remade later as a different version?
10, 9.
Can you read the question again, please?
8. Which animated film originally released in 1967 features a snake character named Ka who hypnotizes the protagonist with his eyes?
Who's the protagonist?
8, 7, 6, 5,
Huh?
4.
Ross, what our producer
He said
something
guess. He said guess. 4, 3,
there? Animated film in 1967.
1.
The Jungle Book?
Correct.
What? What a guess. Yes. Delighted.
Question 2.
Man, the money. Woo.
In Greek mythology, which snake-haired figure would turn people to stone with her gaze?
Medusa.
So easy.
Yes. 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 That's 2 out of 2. Come on. We need a draw. Come on.
Question.
I've never got 3 out of 3 before. This is
This is really easy. The last one you're going to get 100%.
I love it. Come on.
Question 3.
I really want
In
this.
the Harry Potter books,
Oh, no. I've never read them. No.
what is the name for somebody who can talk to snakes? What is... Is it A, parcel mouth, B, parcel tongue, C, parcel lip?
Oh, shite. I'm sorry. Don't cut that out. Watch my language.
Okay, I'm really giving you 10 seconds here because
Hold
it's
on,
A,
hold
B, C.
Hold on. Oh, this is so
It's
I've read.
A,
Fenia,
parcel
come here for a
mouth.
second.
No, don't come, Fenia. A, parcel mouth, B, parcel tongue, C, parcel lip. You've got 10 seconds.
Sorry. I actually forgot. What were the first 3? Sorry.
A, parcel mouth,
Okay. Parcel mouth. Okay.
B, parcel tongue, or C, parcel lip. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Parcel mouth.
Incorrect.
Parcel tongue. Shit, I was going to say that. Damn
It's
it.
too late. It's too late. It's too late. I win. I win. I win. I win. I win. I win.
Are you dancing?
Yes, of course I'm dancing.
Right. Anyway, we are going to wrap it up there on our icon series of Gem Pursuit.
That's not our icon series of Gem Pursuit.
I didn't say trivial. I nearly did. I didn't say it, and then I cut it out, and then you heard it. Listen, it's an end of an era. The end of the icon era. My unbeaten record at Gem Trivial Pursuit is over for now. As the business owner, I am now going to dedicate all next week to recording a new series so I can regain my title. We're actually closing just to record another series. No, of course not. No, definitely not at Christmas. But that is the end of our Icon series. One of my favorite series, I have to say. If you really enjoyed this series, don't worry, because we will be going back to it in the future, but we are going to do a couple of different episodes in the coming weeks. So if you did really enjoy this series, do leave us a review. It gets visibility to our podcast, and the more visibility we have, the more we can invest into the podcast and really enhance the listening experience for you. And for me, the main thing I want is that everyone who's listening to this podcast, you really enjoy it. That genuinely is why we do it, and you get something from it. We have a very special episode coming up though, and it is an Ask Us Anything episode. So if you do have a question that you've just been dying to ask Alyce and myself, get in contact. Email is experts@courtville.ie, or you can get us on Instagram at Courtville Antiques. I just want to say, another belter of a series, Alyce. Of course, you got the easy questions, but you won fair and square. So thank you for being a trusty co-host can be.
Thank you, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed the Icon series as much as we did. And we look forward to seeing some of you later on in the year.
Yes, we will be on the road, and we will give you details about that. But no, Alyce, thank you for all your knowledge you shared with us. I'd like to give a special thanks to our researcher as well, Veronique Galgan, who's put in hours researching and getting us information for these podcasts. Based in Paris, Veronique, thank you very much for everything that you do. Darcy in the shop, Darcy Skelly, does a lot of work on our graphics and our logos and things like that. And of course, our producer, Ross Hannon of Tape Deck, who puts together these episodes and obviously produces the series. So Veronique, Ross, you put together a great series. Thank you very much. And a final thank you to everyone who listens. We really appreciate your enthusiasm for antique jewellery and for these icons. And I really hope you enjoy the podcast. But for me, your host, Matthew Weldon, until the next time, adios, hasta la próxima. Gracias.